Hey, welcome to Squad Talks. This episode we've got Zach Nelson, Corporate Marketing Director with Orr Protection and Orr Corporate. Going to be talking and going deep on branding. I'm talking deep. Hey guys, Bryce Raley here at the Marketing Squad with another episode of Squad Talks over coffee. I've got my buddy Zach Nelson here with us. Zach's the corporate. Good morning. Zach's the corporate marketing director with Orr Protection Corporate.
Yeah, Orr Corporation.
And, used to be Safety.
Yeah, used to have Orr Safety there too.
Yeah. We, as always, we'll give you a quick hint at what we're drinking here. I've got a Coffee Crossing mug. And we were just talking about, I've got some mushroom coffee in there, which is like that stuff Joe Rogan and Mike Chernovich are always pumping. So anyway, I can't tell anything yet, but I've tried it. And then Zach's got Squad mug there with some Good Folks beans ground up in it. So that's what we're jamming on today. I've also got a backup Topo Chico water, sparkling water. It looks like something more than sparkling water, but it's not, I promise you. So, but anyway, good to have you, Zach.
And thank you. Good to be here.
Absolutely. We're going to jump in today to, we've been doing a series on branding. Talked a little about brand messaging, about visual branding, about just overall brand experience and tying it together. And today we're just going to go deep with branding, which is what I like. Zach's a deep thinker and has got a ton of experience in this world. So I'm excited about hearing from him on that. So, you know, our history goes back to HubSpot.
Yeah.
Inbound marketing. Did a little bit of work together way back in the day as everybody was starting to drink that Kool-Aid. Mm-hmm. And yes, I mean, you guys really, I mean, I would say you guys went farther with it than an agency almost did in terms of adoption and, shoe cobblers, Ken. I think we were doing it for clients and whatnot, but in terms of just our own embracing it, we've really picked up the baton and run with that lately. Mm-hmm. But early on, it was like you guys were just leaders in that space, which was cool to see. So
yeah, it really resonated with me back then. You know, I had come from a very traditional marketing and advertising background. We were, buying a lot of print, mm-hmm. newspaper, phone books, just trying to make the phone ring. And so we had a big budget, and we would just make ads and push them out, right? Mm-hmm. And it was around 2011, 2012, and the interesting thing at that time was everybody had a website. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew what social media was, like Facebook was around, but mm-hmm. they were asking questions like, is this website just an online business card, or does it serve a bigger purpose? Yeah. And social media, like, how do you monetize Facebook? That's what the conversation was back then. So working with you guys early on with HubSpot, actually got to listen to Brian Halligan talk a few times, and it really resonated with me because that inbound methodology seemed to be the answer. Well, you use those channels to attract customers to you. So that methodology resonated with us early on because it answered some of those questions that the world was asking at the time.
Now, did you go to the HubSpot luncheon we had with Halligan when he came in?
I did, yeah.
Okay, cool. I forget that we had that.
That's still on YouTube.
Is it? Okay, is it?
You go out and see YouTube.
That.
You'll see there's a Orr table right there next to Brian Halligan. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I remember having him at the office and sitting across the table and being able to talk just with everything, going on with them and their early days. It was a pretty cool memory. So yeah, that's and then we were talking about before we started shooting here a funny story. Back in the day when Zach was working this, we had a guy named Joel Gertis on the team who's was with us for 5 years. He's kind of a famous dude around here still, even though he hasn't been here for several. And then we had our first person on payroll ever was Jesse Devine. We were telling a funny story early on in the days of Orr and working with you guys. We would get together with a key group of the team there to mm-hmm. develop content for a seminar series that you guys were really doing and events and whatnot. And the request came out at one point to have one of the meetings at a firehouse in Oldham County, which is a county near here to Jefferson County. And I remember Jesse Devine was like, "Hey guys, they just asked if we could meet at a firehouse like in the next county over." Yep. And Zach just shared that you guys just had a meeting
Yeah, last week. So
at the firehouse.
At the firehouse,
still rolling that way.
We still do that. One of the organizations under the Orr Corporation is Orr Protection.
Yeah.
It's a high-end fire protection company. We protect a lot of data centers, things that are considered mission critical. So the thing that if that something were to happen to that facility or that asset or whatever, that it would shut the entire business down.
Yeah.
So we have really high-end engineered systems that help detect and suppress fires from happening in those applications. Yeah. So at Orr Protection, we're not just fire nerds from an engineering perspective. We actually have firefighters that are part of that process. They like to be, they're fire guys. They like to be around the trucks and the equipment.
It all made sense after that.
We go build content at a firehouse.
There you go.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, one of the things we want to jump into a couple of different topics today, and like I said, Zach's a deep thinker and just a systematic thinker, and it's amazing to me seeing how he can construct things and architecture things, and then distill them down even to simple terms. But like my business partner Wayne always says, Mayflower approach. If we landed here today, how would you start to build a brand, Zach? If we landed here today and you didn't have one, go.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an awesome question. I think that that's probably a question a lot of people have to deal with in one situation or another. And I think when you're faced with, okay, I've got to build this brand maybe from scratch, or it hasn't been touched in a really long time, and I've got to turn it into something. I think that there's a couple of temptations. Number one is like, hey, just go find a branding agency and have them do it for you. I think another temptation is to just jump right into the fun stuff, right? Mm-hmm. The fun stuff about building the brand, like your photography, your colors, like building out that theme, that branding theme, is really fun. And that's, the fun part is like, you get to take that to your bosses and say, look what we've done. And it's this big thing. And there's a ton of work around that, and it's not easy work, but it's a little premature, I think, to start with, like, let's pick our colors, let's pick our theme, let's pick our images, those kinds of things. It's kind of like, I think we were talking earlier about, like, somebody that really loves basketball, like, the fun part of basketball might be, like, I want to go into a game, and I only really like to score the game-winning shot. That's all I really like to do, right? Well, you can't just start there, right? There's years of practice, there's years of games, there's years of
fundamentals.
Yeah, exactly. Drills that you've got to do to get to the point where, you could be in a game in a situation where you could take the game-winning shot, and then to be able to have the skill set to get open enough to take that shot, right? And then, obviously to make it. Sure, that's the fun part, but you can't just start there.
Yeah.
You've got to lay the groundwork. You've got to have the fundamentals, like you said, the framework. In another, episode you guys have done on branding, I've heard somebody use the term framework. I think that's really smart. And to me, it starts out kind of it's a marriage of two areas. Number one, I think you got to have a sober self-assessment of your organization. What do you offer? Like, who are you? What are your capabilities? Those kinds of things. And then the other end of that is like, who is your customer? What are their needs? How do you speak to them? And somehow when those two kind of come together, your brand comes out of that, right? So being able to sit down and focus on your organization first. It's a little chicken or egg, but really I think I would start with, like, let's understand who we are and what our capabilities are first. And going through and out of that, you'll eventually draw your value proposition. And what I mean by that is, like, what's the thing about your company that your customers need from you the most? Like, what has the most value out of what you provide for your customer? Okay, so you have that aspect of it, and then you want to sit down and you want to really focus on who your actual customers are. And there's a lot of content online about this. A lot of the HubSpot, education will tell you to even start out with, like, an ideal customer profile. So, I mean, it's not a bad place to start, and you can find examples of this online, but you go out and you say, this is the kind of company we want to work with the most because it's maybe it's like through our data we've seen it, like we have easier time selling to these kinds of companies. We're not exactly sure why, but the data seems to point that way. But start there and like pick that ideal customer profile. So you wanna put down some characteristics of that industry, that that market, and what that looks like. And then inside of that, you want to build your brand personas, right? Or your personas of your target personas. So who within that ideal customer profile is going to have your value proposition resonate with the most, right? So like who is your target within that ideal customer profile? And then you can also find examples of this online, and I think HubSpot has a persona builder, like a tool, a step-by-step tool that you can use. But essentially, like, you want to build out like an example of who they are, what are their, what's their day like, what are their problems like, what are their, if you're selling to them, what would their objections be? And then, you want to take that and bring so you have your ideal customer profile, then your personas, then you want to take all of that and you want to draw out your buyer's journey. So what does it take for that buyer to get all the way from like the point where they recognize you, they've got some recognition of your brand, into like that traditional awareness, consideration, decision phase. And one way I've seen people do that is in each phase, awareness, consideration, decision, you have elements of what that persona under that ideal customer profile is thinking, doing, and feeling, right? So under each stage and that will help you if you do that first and go through that whole process, and then you're starting to understand how your value proposition fits into that buyer's journey. Your brand will emerge from that, from like the perspective of like the language that you use, the visualizations that make sense, even the colors. Out of doing that, those fundamental pieces, that the practice work, that your brand will come out of that, and you'll start to understand how like the value that you bring to the table, the difference it makes to your customers, and why they want to use you. And so once that brand starts to emerge, you want to position that in such a way that like it drives that theme all the way through everything you do, and it just supports all your marketing pieces, your messaging, your visuals, everything will come from that, because you're continually driving home that idea.
So Zach's blowing my mind here, because honestly, it flips this whole thing to think, what if you did go in and do all this groundwork before you started, the visuals, the brand messaging, because one pivot we've made here under Kevin's leadership in our project world. I don't want to say, I don't want to get the big head. He's hosting one of these soon, but no, he's been in a hat tip to Josh Eilers, who was set in the project management seat here for years. And that a shift we've made with website projects even is getting a lot of the content, the written words, the images, all that stuff, the video that's going to go into that site, and then starting to design from that point has been a way we've flipped that, and it's gone better, I think, and there's still a lot to do to improve that, but it was a flip from like, let's design it and now put all the stuff in it. And it's kind of what you're saying with this process is, let's lay this all out, and then this will come together kind of.
That's exactly right.
Which is cool, and it just blew my mind. So, want to stop and take notes, Taylor? Do we do that? I am going to close my phone. I left it open for some reason, and I've got 4 kids playing sports with GroupMe, and so those alerts just ping all day long.
Yeah.
Parents on GroupMe love to chat about sports apparently all day. So, anyway, we talked a little earlier as we were making some coffee about how things are so different from the way they used to be when you had a large corporate brand and you just like, here's who we are, and we're going to shove this out there and promote this and all the means, and you weren't really as worried about the feedback loop and those kind of things, because even HubSpot, with those stages of the funnel, really have started to talk too about a flywheel concept of a customer's here, you've got your marketing, sales, and service, and we've talked a lot in the last year here about alignment, because if marketing is not talking to the right audience, if sales is trying to sell to the wrong people, just all that stuff gets so out of whack to where it's, we really want, to be talking correctly to the right people. We're going to find some of the wrong ones. It's a target. We're going to miss the target a little bit with some folks, but on the sales side, it's just so much to say, like, we know we work well with this type of client, and you're just able to spot them in a lineup almost. You're like, oh yeah, they look like, that persona that we work really well with.
That's
and
right.
We've dug into that a bit. So, but yeah, talk a little bit about how that transition's happened with the big brands to like where we're at with inbound driving a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think branding has some alignment with the path that marketing has taken, through like this digital transformation from the outbound days of, designing ads and pushing them out. So, one thing that has happened with, the internet bringing technology and capabilities into the marketing and advertising world, or business in general, right, is like we talked about back in the days where, you would, from a marketing perspective, you would craft a message like, this is what I want my buyers or my potential buyers, I'm going to build this campaign. This is what I want them to think about me. This is what I want them to think about purchasing and why, and then I push that out. So I, as the marketer, the advertiser, or the company, I'm in charge of that message. Like, I'm building it the way I think it should be. I'm building it the way I want to be perceived, the way I like it, and I would push that out. And the customer had no choice but to consume it the way I pushed it out, because there was only so many channels that they could,
And the only measurement is, did they buy?
Right. So, with the internet coming along, one of the things that it has done is really change that buyer-seller relationship. And, if you've been into content marketing for any amount of time, that has been the theme, is like, it's really shifted the positions where, the buyer is the one in control, where the seller used to be the one in control, right? And so that makes a difference on how we market. Now we market, instead of pushing things out, we set things out to attract people to us using digital resources. And the reason we do that is because there's so many channels now that people can choose how they want to consume information and your brand, your messaging. So your branding, branding, the way it's set up, has changed quite a bit because of technology. You're not like back in the day of General Electric and Coca-Cola and Nike, when they could just like have billions of dollars and just saturate, the marketplace with iconic images and those kinds of things, and build those brands. Well, normal organizations, normal companies don't have that luxury in the first place. And now, your buyer's in control of, how they consume things. So you've got to be more strategic about how you place that brand and how you build that brand. And again, it's got to go back to those fundamentals, because you've got to resonate with them. When they see that brand, it's got to click, and it's got to support that buying process.
Absolutely.
Right. So you've got to have that brand ready for Instagram, or, any type of, the thousands of ways that people can consume information now.
There are a lot of them. So once if you've done it the right way, you've laid it out from the beginning, the other pieces have come together, the visual, the messaging, those kind of things, then, like, you've sat in this seat for a while, so just curious your take on this. How do you keep it in the rails? As with that title, corporate marketing director, large, the Orr brand, is crosses over from probably what people would consider small business, is definitely mid-size. And it's a lot of folks going and trying to go in the same direction. And how do you sit in a seat that's reining all that in? And just any thoughts that you've got on that?
Yeah, sure. I think that's a good question too, especially like we our brands for the organizations that were under the Orr Corporation really worked separately from each other, like day to day, right? And so you had people over here working on this organization, people working on this organization, and so the brand had some fundamental consistency, but it was kind of starting to drift, right? And so one way that we were able to fix that is build a centralized agency for the organization. So we pulled everybody together and said, okay, we're working for everybody now. One group for the whole corporation. Yeah. And when we were able to pull that together, we were able to use that transition time to redo the whole brand. So, we wanted to have a brand that really, it was a 70-year-old company. So there's a lot of history there.
Sure,
so we wanted to make sure that we brought some of that history into it too, because we thought that, that is a big part of, what our customers value in us is the fact that, we're a stable organization. We've been around for a long time. We're not going anywhere. We're here to support you as a customer. And so when we were able to pull that agency together, we were able to bring all the branding inconsistencies together and create a single Bible, if you will, for brands. So building our brand guidelines was critical. And we had to work, it's a major cultural experience within an organization, because you do have to bring leadership into it. And if you've done all your homework right up front, you're able, as the marketer, as the person in charge of that or helping that along, you're able to communicate to leadership a lot better about why you're doing the things that you're doing. It's not just because I feel like it or I think or it could be. It's we've done the work here to actually build a structure, a framework, and part of that is how your customers feel about it. You can talk to your current customers as part of that process. And so when you present brands and you build those brands, you've got a platform to stand on, and it's not just your opinion, right? And I think you can get into some weird ego stuff when it's just everybody's opinion on the table. And if you've got actual data that you can use and you've got those pieces that you've built out, gives you as a marketer a platform to be able to say, this is the direction we need to go with the brand, and this is why. And then once you have that and you've got the buy-in from the cultural buy-in from the leadership of the organization, you've got to have that brand guideline, that Bible that is this is how you use your voice and tone, your messaging, your visuals. There's tons of great examples online of brand guidelines. If you're an organization that doesn't have that, that's something that that's a great place to start, because if you can do that, you can go back and do the fundamentals we just talked about to get to there, and then firmly establish that brand. And then the other thing we did is, because we did have several organizations, is we had a great creative director, a creative manager who was in charge of the brand, and we had a process around it. So her job was to make sure that the brand was stable and didn't change, and policed every aspect of it, from email signatures to content offers, right, business cards, whole 9 yards. If the brand needed to change or be updated for some reason, there was a process that we went through, and it wasn't just her. We had several people that would come together and say, okay, I feel like that's a good change to make, and then we changed the brand guidelines, and everything was around that document. So it was a lot easier, because we had something to point to. Hey, it's not my opinion. Look, we did this.
That's awesome insight. I told you we'd be going deep here. This is good. This is gold, Jerry, gold. One thing we've been doing is with HubSpot is we're embracing the tool more on the sales side, the marketing side. And we were a gold partner years ago. We didn't stop selling it ever, but we just sold less of it for a few years there. And then we've kind of hit the ground running again in the last year, and are about that far from making platinum here soon. But we internally have started to embrace it, and we're looking at the Service Hub now, and how surveys, Net Promoter Score stuff, how that can inform back to us, so it isn't just us sitting around the table, throwing out opinions.
Right.
It's, hey, clients are saying this, our team's saying that. And so we're excited to kind of branch into that. Well, totally appreciate you coming on. Short notice. We've done a few other things together. Had you at a few other events, over the last few years. I think we had one that I was super excited about that got canceled with COVID last year.
It did.
Maybe get that back on the radar possibly. But anyway, anything going on in your world, I always kind of like to just do a personal check-in with anybody that's on the show, a guest or our team members or whatnot. But what are you doing these days outside of work?
So the big story around my house is the new year we started. I've got 5 kiddos at home. My wife and I do, and that's a lot of energy in the house, right? And so we actually started Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Like we've got all the kids doing this stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's great to watch, right? And so one thing I've realized by doing that is like my kids are big and they're strong and they're not slowing down, like they're getting bigger and stronger, right? And I was thinking to myself, if we continue doing this for a couple of years, I'm basically training them to kill me, right? So I started doing it too recently.
So the old, hey, you still can't take dad down thing, that might not work. Huh?
Right. So I've started doing that recently too, and that's been a ton of fun. It's the whole family is like able to kind of get together and do that and get some of that energy out, and
that's awesome. That's a cool thing. Yeah. During this whole last year of the COVID experience, my son went from 5'3" to 5'8", probably and a half now. So he's passed my wife up, and he's like that much shorter than me. So yeah, that whole conversation of like, hey, dad still take you out. That's it's getting to be I'm not wondering about it. I'm sure I could still get him in a headlock and give him some noogies, but man, they grow up fast. But yeah,
I'm just trying to survive if they attack, right? Like I just need to figure out how to get out of it so I can run away.
What's the mix you've got of boys and girls?
I've got 4 girls and 1 boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 girls and a boy here. So
okay.
I don't think I realized that you had 5. I was for some reason I was thinking it was 4.
Yeah, my oldest is 11. My youngest is 3.
Okay, that's awesome. Cool. Well, again, great having Zach on and going deep with him on branding. Be sure to subscribe below on YouTube. Maybe Taylor will link up our brand, sample of our brand Bible, brand guide. And then stay tuned for more episodes coming your way. Thanks, Zach.
Hey, no problem. Thank you.